Hey, Honda has a bad habit of making tiny things that are huge on a cool factor, just like my hog, but also like that.
Later this year, Honda is going to release this thing in Australia. It's called the Super One, and it's a tiny electric car. And while its range isn't going to be massive, and it's probably going to be a bit expensive for what it is, like my little scooter, it could be just about perfect for people who want something compact, cute, and compatible with the city environment. Now, there's a bit of a nerdy link between the scooter and the Super One. Called the Motocompo, the scooter was released by Honda in the early 1980s as part of a two-vehicle system, because by twisting a few knobs and pulling a lever, you could fold it up into a little rectangle and throw it in the back of this car, a Honda City. I actually used to have one, and it was the Turbo 2 variant that was a bit of a pocket rocket as well. I miss that car dearly. And as you cast your eyes over the Super One, you should see more than a passing resemblance to the old City Turbo. Wider, boxy flares surround each wheel arch, the axles are pushed right to the extremities of the floor pan, and the Super One has a squat, bulldog stance that just looks cool. But it's incredibly small. The Super One is based on a Japan market K car called the N1 and measures just under 3.6 meters long and 1.6 meters wide. That's slightly smaller than a Kia Picanto, and it's even smaller than a Fiat 500e. Now, Honda's used some tricks to make that interior feel bigger and more useful than you'd expect, but what else can you expect from this tiny hatchback? And, more importantly, is it going to be the right kind of EV for you?
Okay, you're probably curious how well you're going to fit into this thing, because let's face it, anything based on a K car is not very big on the inside. And look, to be honest, if you're a big burly bloke, you might want to at least try this out before you get too excited about the Super One. I'm not a big guy. I'm only 5'8", and I don't have the broadest shoulders in the world. But even then, I'm feeling a little bit hemmed in inside here. Headroom is not a problem. As you can see, they've got quite a lot of headroom to work with. It's more the shoulder and elbow room because it all runs very close to the door card. If I bring the seat all the way back, that's as much rear travel as you get. So if you're a really tall, long-legged guy or girl, this might feel a little bit cramped, but you got to understand this is a very compact car, so compromises obviously have to be made. And it all comes down to the interior packaging. But in terms of interior packaging, there is some clever stuff to get around the shortfall of actual cubic volume. You've got a nice little storage shelf up here, just below your screen, your infotainment screen, which is running a fairly slick implementation of Google's Android Auto operating system. You've got a nice clear screen in front of you, not a terribly big one, but I don't think it needs to be big. The whole car's small, so even a small screen looks huge. But a two-spoke steering wheel in front of you with a couple of shift paddles and a nice purple boost button. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And all of your shift controls are up here on a pedestal because there's not much in the way of a center console, as you can see. There is a small tray between the front seats, but it's not really big enough for anything except for a can of drink, perhaps. This is actually kind of useful though, because you can do this.
He can exit from the passenger side. Why might that be useful? Well, this might be useful if you live in a fairly compact apartment or townhouse with a very small car park. Having the flexibility to just exit from the passenger side could actually make a difference. But also just the sheer compactness of the overall package is definitely going to win some fans who live within, 5 kilometers of the CBD, where housing density is definitely on the increase.
Now, as for the seats themselves, they're actually surprisingly sporty for something that is pitched as an entry-level eco car. They really do grip you quite nicely. They're a little bit pinchy around the bum, but in a good way. It definitely is going to hold you quite positively if you're attacking a corner in this thing, which Honda promises this thing actually will probably be okay at. It's not obviously going to be a Type R type experience, but with all of the wide body kit, the fatter wheel and tire package that you get on this thing versus the K vehicle that it's based on, and just features like that little boost button right there to tighten everything up for you, it might actually be a little bit of fun around town. Okay, this is actually not as bad as I was expecting it to be. You'll see that this door opens really, really wide, which helps you get in and out. It's not a huge aperture, but just having less door in your way is definitely useful. But the seat itself, I mean, it's not wide enough to have 3 people across here. It's strictly a 4-seater vehicle. But this is a decent amount of sprawling space. I've actually got the seat reclined a little bit, and it's reasonably comfortable. The boot, however, different story. Let's take a quick look. Okay, so not the biggest boot in the world. I don't have a litre figure for you just yet, but I will say, even though there are ISOFIX anchorages in the back seats for baby seats, there's not really heaps of room for a pram and all the other baby stuff. So if you're a family buyer, I hope you're space efficient. But there is one other feature that does make this a little bit easier from a cargo carrying point of view. The return of magic seats. Oh, I love this feature. I do miss it. It's been a while since I've seen a Honda in Australia with that. How useful is that? Turns it into a little minivan, or if you want a more traditional cargo carrying experience, fold that flat, it knees down. It's actually then this thing becomes pretty capacious. Great packaging, not bad.
Bear in mind, this is just a long lead early look at the Super One, and there are a few information gaps.
In case you're wondering, behind this door, that's where your charge port lives. But as to the battery that charge port is connected to, we don't quite know exactly what capacity it's got. We do know, however, that in Japan, the Honda N1 EV that this vehicle is based on has a 29-ish kilowatt hour battery pack in there, and that's good in that car for a range of just under 300 kilometers. Whether that translates over to this car in our market, we don't know. But we should find out as we get a little bit closer to that second half launch.
We do know from a leak out of Singapore that 70 kilowatts of power and I think it was 165 Newton meters of torque are most likely the numbers that this car is going to get for this market. Again, I will sort of caveat that. We don't know for sure just yet. You have to check back with us a little bit closer to the launch. But those numbers are actually not too bad when you consider this car is also expected to arrive with a curb weight of sub 1,100 kilos. That is nothing in this day and age and is incredibly light for a full battery electric vehicle. So 70 kilowatts might be all you need to zip through traffic in this rig.
That other critical metric that we don't have is the price. We still don't know. We're going to find out later in the year. But right now, Honda, the only thing they're willing to say on that matter is that it will be cheaper than a Civic, which doesn't really say much when the Civic is running up on 50 grand these days. But expect it somewhere within that 30 to 40K region, maybe a little bit above 40K. The expectation is that this will battle the Hyundai Insta, and that is at the top of the 30K price bracket. So expect it to land somewhere within that region. But do you think that might be a little bit too much for a car this small with this limited range? Or is it about right because it just looks so cool and it's very compatible with an inner city lifestyle? Is the Super One going to be super expensive or super small? Or is it going to be super appealing?
Alright, that concludes the sneak peek, but what do you think? Is the Honda Super One just too super small for you? Or do you reckon it'll be super expensive for what it offers? Or is it exactly the kind of thing you've been waiting for? A car that's compact and easy to wield around town, that looks sick, is a giggle to drive, and will cost peanuts to run? Or will it end up like the poor old Moto Compo over there? A cool idea, but an evolutionary dead end in the history of motoring. Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more. See you next time.